What was the rant about today? I didn't do a rant. I didn't do a rant. I did, but not in the podcast. Basically, I sat down and recorded a rant about Sekiro. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and you know what? I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you the rant. I'm going to show you what was kind of annoying me, so that you can understand. But I recorded the rant and then I thought, no, that's unhinged. So I recorded another rant and thought, no, that's still unhinged. And then I recorded it again and thought, okay, still a little unhinged. But then Quadico, who had already shared a rant with, said, oh, actually, I think you made a mistake. So then I thought, oh, okay. So my rant became less and less ranty. And I'm glad I didn't release it because I was a little bit. Oh, I was a little bit too judgy. But I will show you what I was ranting about. By the way, if playing this for yourself, I would highly recommend keeping the voice over in Japanese. Oh, I will. Oh, I absolutely will. Oh, I just use subtitles. I'll be just using subtitles. Definitely. Please publish the rant. Now, I'm not going to publish the rant in this case, because this one I ranted too much because I misjudged it a little bit. I'll tell you what it was, though. I'll tell you what it was. The first thing was when I first came in, the on-screen prompts were all for controller, like that. So it's like A, confirm, B, back, which is really annoying because I wasn't using a controller. I did figure out how to change it, but I'm a bit weirded out that you have to. Because most of the games detect when you've got a controller installed. Now, I do have a controller installed, just I've got it switched off. And most of the games I've got, you even Skyrim gets this right, yeah? You turn it on and all the prompts change. You turn it off, all the prompts change back to mouse and keyboard. This game kind of failed to do that. And, well, you know, basically that started me off. That put me in a bad-ish mood, right? Because, why? Again, one of the things you're going to notice with a lot of the things I rant about, and I know some people go, oh my God, you rant about the most unimportant, stupid things. I rant about things that a developer has no excuse for not getting right. I'm one of these people who's pretty damned forgiving, especially if you're doing something new, unusual, different. But if you're doing something that has been done a gazillion times and you get it wrong, it kind of irks me. So things like this bother me. There is a standard way of doing things, and it's become a standard because it kind of works. And when you decide to deviate from that, you need a good reason. I need to look at whatever you've changed and think, yeah, you know what? I see why they did that. It's like when playing Green Hell. Some of the things they changed don't make a huge amount of sense, but some of them do. Some of them are really, really not instinctive to a PC player in Green Hell because they're just so very different to how I would normally do it in normal games. But Green Hell has an excuse in that it has a lot of different potential mechanics with one tool, like the spear. The spear could be stabbed. You can block with it. You can hold it back and do a power thrust for fishing. You can throw it. There's all sorts of different things you can do. And so I sort of understand why they had to try and get a bit creative with the controls. I'm not saying they necessarily got it right, but I understand why they deviated from the norm, why they did something that was non-standard, right? I do not understand why games like this game, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, does things that are not standard. Same with Fallout 76, etc. Because you're doing it for no reason, as far as I can see. So anyway, that immediately set off warning flags to me. But then it was little things like I'm going to go to, I think it's key config, right? So I can rebind the movement keys, which is great, which is brilliant, you know, bravo. And I can't believe I'm actually congratulating games for getting movement rebinds. I'd say I'm congratulating them. I've got no idea if it works. I've got no idea if it works. I haven't actually tried playing the game yet. So Then I was messing around with, where was it? Yeah, here it was. No, right, crouch. This was it, crouch. Basically, the mistake I made was I looked at this and thought it was a standard PC interface, and I thought this was the main keybind, and this was the alternate keybind. Why did I assume that? Now, people who are controller users might be confused by that, or if you're the sort of person who never key rebinds. If you are used to using a keyboard and you rebind your keys, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Most games will either have one column where you bind the key, or they'll have two, so you can have an alternative bind. And that is actually quite useful for quite a lot of different reasons that is difficult to explain to people who are controller users or who never rebind their keys. But the short version is, occasionally you may have a normal setup, like M for map, right? M for map. And you're just used to doing it, so you instinctively go to M for map. But you're playing a game where opening the map every 2 seconds is really useful. So you want to actually put it nearer to your movement key, so you decide to have it as tab as well, right? Instead of changing the keybind from M to tab, you just make the alternative key tab. That way you can keep pressing tab to get the map up as you're getting used to the new game, but when you forget and do your instinctive press M, you still open the map. So there's reasons for having the alternate key, yeah? There's a few other reasons as well. You know, maybe your hand moves quite a lot on the keyboard and you always want to have access to different things. Or you have two people playing the same game who like slightly different setups. So there's a bunch of reasons. Doesn't really matter. It's pretty standard. It's pretty basic. So when I saw these two columns, I kind of assumed it was that. I didn't read keyboard and mouse. This is what Quorico pointed out to me when I was ranting. Because what I did was I went to rebind crouch as one of my mouse buttons and it wouldn't bloody let me. I did this. Press the mouse button. I'm like, what? I can't rebind the bloody mouse? I can't rebind it as a mouse button? Now, again, a lot of people who don't do rebinds or don't use mouse and keyboard probably get confused why that's a bit frustrating. Because they think, well, of course, doesn't it make sense to have one column for mouse buttons and another column for keyboard buttons? And the answer is no, it doesn't make any bloody sense whatsoever, because the buttons on your mouse and the buttons on your keyboard are pretty much identical. They are absolutely identical. They really are. There's no reason to treat them any differently whatsoever. The only things that could be remotely considered different might be the mouse wheel, or if you've got one of those mice like the Logitech G903 where you can actually have the mouse wheel tilts left and right. But even then, those things can be considered button presses, and most games, again, I'm going back to what is normal, most games will let you quite happily select any of those as a potential key. So when I was trying to bind a mouse button here, it just felt instinctive. Again, that was because I didn't notice this, but this is non-standard and pointless. This is what I'm going to tell you now. This is an absolute pointless setup. There is no need to separate keyboard and mouse. They're here. No reason whatsoever. There's no technical reason to do it, and there's no functional reason to do it either. This looks like it was made by someone who kind of understands you can have a keyboard and a mouse, but who thinks that they are very different when it comes to buttons. Yeah? And I understand if you're not a mouse and keyboard user, that might feel completely obvious. Well, one's one thing and one's the other. Right. But if you use mouse and keyboard all the time, you know if you've got a multi-button mouse, you quite often just use loads of the buttons on there for random things. Maybe you assign map to one of them. If you've got one of those Naga MMO mouses, you probably set tons of keys. So this reeks of someone who really doesn't quite understand mouse and keyboard. But here's where it gets really interesting. I decided I wanted to change some of these items to the number plus key. The plus key on the numpad. Nope. Nope. Number minus? Nope. So yeah, I can do the enter key on the numpad. I can do the 9 key on the numpad. I can't do the star on the numpad. I can't do the slash on the numpad. I can't do the comma on the numpad. I can do the 0. Why? I don't know. I don't know. I do not know. And again, there's no technical reason why that cannot be. Oh, here's a thought. Let's try. Oh, yeah, no. I can't use or. Brilliant. Oh, I can't use the plus key either. I can't actually use it. It's not just a numpad. I can't use the dash. I can't use the minus, the full stop, the less than or greater than. Oh, it's not just the number pad. Right. So what they've done here is they've restricted it to alphanumerics. It's purely alphanumerics. They won't let you use any of the other keys whatsoever. If it's not alphanumeric, you can't use it. Why? No reason. There is absolutely no reason. There's no reason for it whatsoever. It's like they've looked at the keyboard and thought, oh, okay, those letters are the ones we type with, and the other ones, well, they're scary and weird and different. We probably shouldn't use those in our games because they're probably scary and weird and different. This is just somebody who doesn't understand what a keyboard is. This is somebody who does not understand what a keyboard is. Because there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to bind any of those font keys. The 3 Norwegian letters that the English language doesn't have, I should be able to use. All of the plus, the minus, all these other characters. It's a keyboard layout problem, most likely. Probably. Which means they're not going through the standard Windows keyboard setup. However it is most normal games do this. Because most normal games can handle that without any problem. And again, I'm going to reiterate, what annoys me about this is a standard thing. This is something that millions of other games get right. And in this particular case, it's kind of hard not to get it right. It means they've done something very different to every other game. They've either, I don't know, they're manually bypassing Windows and checking for certain keys, or they have done something like only allow keys that are between these scan codes to force it to be alphanumeric. And I suspect it's the latter. I suspect they've just said, we don't know where any of these keys are. Let's not let them bind it. Now, I can't say that's how it is, but there's no technical reason why I should not be able to set any of these keys. There just isn't. Is space bound for anything? Yes, it is, right. So space. But that's the other thing I'll notice. They use the English word for space and shift on these. So they're not localizing it. They're not checking. Because that's the thing. If they were localizing this, it would say melon run. Now, some people will be, well, the game's probably set to use English on its language here. I can set a game to use English everywhere. But when I do keybinds, it will almost always show the Norwegian. Because that's what it's getting from Windows. So I've got this feeling something weird's going on. But again, what annoys me about this is millions of games get this right. It's a standard thing. It shouldn't be this way. I should be able to do it. And it is very annoying because 2 of those keys, the plus and minus, are keys I want to use. I want to use those bloody keys. Now, I can fix it. I can use auto hotkey. I can use a third-party program to fix this. And that's a bit of a tradition with From Software games because, of course, Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 sucked with mouse and keyboard. And I know there are people out there who believe in the magical voodoo of Dark Souls games that somehow they are just inherently, there's something about those games that doesn't work well with mouse and keyboard. It's not a failure of the developers, it's just something about that type of game that does not work well with mouse and keyboard, which is utter rot because there are tens of thousands of games like Dark Souls. I know Dark Souls fans like to pretend Dark Souls is some real weird holy grail of gaming that exists outside of the normal rules, but it's not. It's an over-the-shoulder, it's third person, but it's like an over-the-shoulder combat game. There's bloody thousands of them, tens of thousands of them. They vary in difficulty. Some of them are quite simple, but the basic concept in Dark Souls is no different to all of those other games. And people are going, oh, but it requires timing. That doesn't require you don't use a mouse and keyboard. Timing, you can still do timing with a mouse and keyboard. There's nothing special about it. But here's how I can prove categorically that there's no technical reason why From Software couldn't have got mouse and keyboard working on Dark Souls 1 and 2. They got it working on Dark Souls 3 perfectly. They got it working on Dark Souls 3 perfectly. I will also tell you that I got Dark Souls 1 and 2 working perfectly with mouse and keyboard by using third-party software. If I can fix those games to work perfectly with mouse and keyboard on Dark Souls 1 and 2, the developers should be able to do the same. There is no reason they should not be able to do the same. Same argument for things, people like Bethesda. If I can use a third-party piece of software to fix your key rebind nightmarish issues, you should be able to do it within the game. It's as simple as that. I can't explain it any simpler than that. And that's what annoys me. That's what gets me angry. A lot of people get really angry about glitches or bugs and, oh my god, the render engine was terrible and their heads went funny shape when you went over there, or the game crashed all the time. And those are the sort of things I have a lot of patience for. I have a lot of forgiveness in my heart for, because I know those things are very difficult to fix sometimes. They're not necessarily the easiest things. There are reasons why you might fail to make a stable game. There are reasons why you may fail to make a game perform well so that it's not optimized. I'm not saying you should be automatically forgiven for them, but I am more likely to forgive you for a poorly performing game that you have not optimized yet than I am for failing at key rebinds. Because key rebinds are easy to get right. They're easy to get right. Mouse and keyboard interface for a game like Dark Souls is easy to get right. If an idiot like me can fix Dark Souls 1 and 2 with about an hour, 2 hours of mucking about with scripts, the bloody developer should be able to do the same. That's all it took. It just took a couple of hours of messing around with scripts until I got it working the way I wanted it to work. And I could almost certainly do it now in 10 minutes. Now I know how to do it and what I would want to change and what I would want to set up. I could do it in 10 minutes. If an idiot like me can change it and fix it in 10 minutes with a third-party piece of software, the developers can bloody well do it. There's no excuse for it, and it's absolutely infuriating. It's even more infuriating because of the number of people who make excuses for failures like this. It is infuriating. Could you imagine if I'd have said, oh, you know, I like Bethesda games, so I'm going to forgive them for getting key rebinds wrong. Everyone would go bonkers, but apparently people can come up to me and say, oh, you complain about the stupidest things. So yeah. Cindy's Crazy, thank you for the resub. Kebab 4TW, thank you for the resub. All right, I'm not an idiot. Yeah, what I meant was I'm not a developer of games. I'm not the one. I couldn't tell you how to make a 3D engine, right? I was a programmer, but I couldn't tell you how to make a 3D game engine, right? So the guys that do that are doing stuff that I couldn't even dream of doing. But this, getting key rebinds working, that there is just no excuse for that. There is not a reason I can fathom that makes that acceptable. Witcher 3 got it wrong when it first came out, and I called them out for it. I mean, I didn't rant about it. I didn't rant about it for that game because it was less of an issue than, say, Fallout 76. Fallout 76 had the exact same problem Fallout 4 had, and it was a huge issue. Those two games have a huge issue if you want to rebound movement keys to the arrow keys and do settlement building. It basically breaks that functionality. With Witcher 3, when it came out, you couldn't rebind the map key and a couple of other keys. They were hard-coded. That was annoying. It was annoying, but it didn't break the game for me. Rage 2, if you rebound the movement keys, it broke the bike. Do you remember that one? It broke the bloody bike. You rebound the movement keys to arrow keys, and all of them worked except turn right. That's just it. I mean, that is pitiful. That is pitiful. Or was it left? I can't remember. What is it? No. If you press the right button, nothing happened. Nothing happened. The movement key for the bike to turn one of the directions, was either left or right, was actually hard-coded. It was actually hard-coded, which is amazing. Is amazing. So yeah, so you can imagine my rant against Sekiro Shadows Die Twice was major. It is annoying. The fact that I can't do plus and minus is actually a big thing for me. It's a big thing for me because of the keyboard I use. I can fix it with auto hotkey. I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to. I really shouldn't. If you're a controller user, just imagine you're using your Xbox controller, and instead of them using the left thumbstick for movement, they decided to use the D-pad for movement. They just decided to do that. That's what the D-pad. They're going to use the D-pad for movement. And the left thumbstick for camera instead of the right thumbstick. So you can't even do movement and camera with the same, with two different thumbs. Imagine that. Just imagine that, right? And to do what was the D-pad, you'd use the right thumbstick or something. Just rotate them all around, right? And tell me it's not important. Tell me you could play like that without any problems, and you'd accept that. No, that's just what they decided to do. That's the direction they took it. You should adapt. You can fix it. Can't you remap the controller things using a third-party program? Aren't there third-party programs that let you remap the D-pads and things? Can't you fix it yourself? Why are you complaining about it? You'd be going, 'cause it's moronic. It's stupid. Why did they do it? That you would. And it's the same for mouse and keyboard. It is the same for mouse and keyboard. And it just, it doesn't just annoy me when I find these things. It annoys me that people make excuses for them. So anyway, there you go. Now I don't need to do the rant video. I feel better though. So thank you.